We're in good shape then. All right. It's 2 o'clock Eastern time, and we're going to get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Doherty, an analyst with National RTAP, the National World Transit Assistance Program. And I want to welcome you to National RTAP's second workshop on the theme of relaxing. Our goal is that this workshop gives you an introduction to relaxing through appreciation of nature and some wonderful photos and poetry. Before we will begin, we will review a few housekeeping notes, as we always do, and a little introduction to the National World Transit Assistance Program. So you have a couple of options for Audible, including using your computer, or you can call in using one of the numbers on the screen, but you will need to enter the ID shown here, the webinar ID. And if you have any issues with audio, please let us know in the chat and we will try to assist you. You can use the chat to communicate with panelists and other attendees, but please use the Q&A to submit questions to be answered during probably the end of the workshop. The workshop slides and its recording will be posted on our website in about a week from today. The slides are mostly these housekeeping slides that I'm running through right now, but the recording, of course, will be much more interesting. So I assume most of you are familiar with National RTAP, but for those of you for whom this is your first National RTAP workshop or webinar, the National World Transit Assistance Program is a technical assistance center funded by the Federal Transit Administration, more commonly known as FTA, under the Section 5311 program. Our mission is to address the training and technical assistance needs of rural and tribal transit operators across the nation, and to support state RTAP programs, most of which are administered through the state departments of transportation. And as many of you know, when life is more normal, we travel around the country to transit conferences, offering resources and training materials. So the program is managed through the Neponset Valley Transportation Management Association, and we're located outside of Boston, Mass, with an office in DC. We are guided by a review board consisting of state and transit and state RTAP managers. They provide feedback on our products and ensure we provide relevant materials to the people that we serve. Basically, they're our boots on the ground, if you will. I want to take just a very quick minute to make everyone familiar with a great new resource that's been developed by the FTA and its technical assistance centers. We're one of several. It's the Transportation Technical Assistance Coordination Library, more commonly known as TACL. It's an effective catalog and repository of resources related to transportation coordination available through the FTA and its 5 technical assistance centers. You can access TACL using the URL on the slide, with or without the dash. It all goes to TACL. All the resources are free, full text, high quality, peer-reviewed resources that we encourage people to use and to share. There are several great webinars and meetings coming up hosted by National RTAP. I will put these links into the chat in a few minutes in case you'd like to join us. And given that this is a workshop on relaxing, I'd like to give a little shout out, a little extra notification about our up and coming book club meeting. The author of this very entertaining book it's about his experiences related to being an accidental bus driver in London, and he'll be joining us from England. So finally, welcome, George. Harvard-educated George Kinder founded the Kinder Institute of Life Planning in 2003 after 30 years as a practicing financial manager and tax advisor. Currently a mindfulness teacher and author, Mr. Kinder's latest book on poetry and photography, Reflections on Spectacle Pond, the weekly edition, is available as a free email subscription and is a meditative guide to living in nature's cycles, week by week and moment by moment. Among his 7 books, he has written one on mindfulness, Transforming Suffering into Wisdom, and another book on photography and poetry, A Song for Hannah. We are all looking forward to hearing the poetry and seeing the beautiful photos that George will be sharing with us today. And I'd like to take a moment to say that Spectacle Pond is very close to where I live. I had the very rare privilege this winter of being able to ice skate a few times on a pond that's about 3 miles southeast of Spectacle Pond. Skating outdoors is one of my favorite things to do to relax, assuming the ice is good and thick. Now, on that note, George, I'm going to invite you to begin and you can share your screen.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Thank you, Nancy. So before I share my screen, I think I'm going to just frame the talk for a moment, if I may, for everybody. And this is primarily going to be a slideshow of beautiful photographs and poems going through a year on Spectacle Pond. The Cara, who brought me in, and I thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's a real thrill for me. I grew up in rural Ohio, and then I found this place here in Massachusetts, which you'll see has a very rural feel to it, even though it's not that far from Boston. And I've spent a great deal of time in right on the edge of indigenous communities in Hawaii. So it's a real thrill to be supportive of all of you in doing this. Cara suggested that I start with a meditation, a mindfulness piece. And the book really is about mindfulness in nature. It's about how nature calls us alive into moments, into present moments. And that's really what mindfulness is as well. And if we're in the relaxation element of your workshops or theme of your workshops, there's nothing more incredible than mindfulness for delivering, I think, relaxation over a lifetime. It's something I've done over a lifetime. And I will say at the same time, it's very challenging to do, as some of you will probably know, because if you just try, well, in this little meditation that we'll do just for a minute or two, if you try to be present the whole time, you'll find that your mind keeps bouncing you off to something else and you have to call it back. So it's a bit like learning how to play a piano, and at first you feel like you're all thumbs. And that can continue for 50 years even. But the truth is that it delivers great benefits daily, weekly, and throughout a lifetime. So the thing that was amazing to me when I discovered this property, let me show you the screen. When I discovered this property on Spectacle Pond, let me see where, okay. For some reason it's not taking me directly there. Let's just see if I can find it here. Here we go. No, it's in mail. Sorry, everybody, this was all set up and now it's been thrown just a bit. I'm going to share. All right, so here's the book. And let's do so when I discovered Spectacle Pond and fell in love with it, I realized that this was the place where I was called to do what I thought of as my life's work, which is to convey the extraordinary experience of being in nature, of pursuing the present moment, of learning to be more and more alive in the present moment. So let's start with a mindfulness exercise that is related in a way to any time we go into nature. One of the things that was stunning to me to recognize over the years is that when you go out in nature, you feel the air on your skin, you can feel the breeze, you hear all the sounds, you smell the aromas. But mindfulness is exactly the same thing. In mindfulness, you keep coming back to the present moment of the breath. Nature keeps calling you back to the present moment of however it's unfolding around you. There's an extraordinary relationship there. And I think that relationship is really one of ecosystem, basically, that we are completely in tune. We were born to be here and to be in nature in this way. So let's take a minute, and I recommend sitting closed-eyed for just this beginning moment. And at first, just feeling what it feels like to be in a body. So again, you could be in nature, but here you are perhaps in your office, perhaps at home, sitting in a chair, just feeling how it feels to be in a body, sitting in a chair. You could be sitting outside in nature. But here, sitting in a chair, feeling the warmth of the chair, the coolness of the air around you, whatever sensations you feel, feeling from the tip of your toes all the way up to the top of your head. And paying particular attention to how it feels in your torso. So that's a great place where we identify with kind of being a human being in the world. Feel that as sensations. And then allow yourself to go to the breath, which is the primary place that mindfulness is taught. It's a great place for focus because it keeps changing, but it's sensory. It's all about sensing. So feel the breath either at the belly or at the nostrils. Noticing how it changes. And whenever a thought comes in to interrupt, just let the thought go and come back to just this moment of experiencing the breath. In nature, you would be coming back to just this moment of experiencing the wind, or the aroma, or the sound. So keep returning from your busy mind, your busy life, from your machines around you. Come back to this inner nature inside yourself. Letting go of all your thoughts and all your stories. The mind keeps wandering and you keep returning. Feeling the breath at the nostrils or at the belly. Feeling its temperature and its shape and its location. And feeling it and allowing it to disappear and then coming back to it once again. Okay, so let's come back to this moment. Open your eyes and come back to this experience of the pond that we're going to have here. And you can see the pond here. This is clearly late summer with the loose strife is the flower that you see. It's an invasive weed, but so beautiful. And with the green and the purple and the fog on the pond. So this is Reflections on Spectacle Pond, the weekly edition. And I've captured over 30 years, I've captured photographs and poems for every day and every week. This is the weekly edition, so you're going to see images of each week. And I'll read some of the poems, a good deal of the poems, perhaps. So this is acknowledgements and introduction, preface, and you're beginning to see this wintry season that we're in. And then here is, maybe I'll start with this, one of these poems. January 1st to 8th. I keep wanting to know what creation is. This vastness, this freshness that I see in all directions, this moment that keeps arising wherever I am. How is it that it does that? And without any aid from me, the closer I get to it, the more curious and intricate my observation, the more alive it becomes, and the more deep the peace I experience within my nimble mind. Milton writes in Paradise Lost of the moment God created the universe, but each moment I see here on Spectacle Pond is that very moment. And then a second poem, top right, let's read this poem too. Those of you who are in New England, I don't know how many of you are, but or in the north at least, you've experienced winter right now and the feel of it. White outside my window, though all the snow has stopped. How reckless and tense the ways of the world seem to me. I wish to stay as still as snow until green shoots burst through my soil, watching in each moment how still and how alive I can become. That's really one of the secrets of mindfulness, is that we get very still, but also very alive. And nature does that to us. It takes our breath away, and it gives us kind of an aliveness as well. So here's another wintry set of scenes. You can see all of these pages are going to be different. I tried to make each of them interesting with anywhere from 1 to 6 or 7 photographs. On the right-hand side? No, let's do the left-hand side. My face is frozen, silently melting, thawing, cracking. I keep thinking it's you at the door, but it's just clumps of snow falling on the porch. A lone locomotive charges its way seamlessly across my rain and snow-strewn window. I too, alone upon the path, hearing raindrops on my roof, foolishly search the frozen landscape for vestiges of spring, but branches wave aimlessly, awkwardly, without meaning. There is no beckoning in their gesture. So there's that cold side and lonely side of winter, and also of locomotives and of being on one's path. This one here on the bottom left, this is January 16th to 22nd. As I reach to turn the knob on the cabin door, just in the reach of the curtained arm, settle inside me all the currents of the day. The brisk wind blows my coat up toward my hand. Comforts of wool and warmth pour in a moment through the opening of the door, and the study, its books of reflection, writing strewn on tables, shelves, and floor, each one a friend, an acquaintance, a conversation, a civilization. You can see that in these images, that each one is like a whole world of experience, each of these photos, all on the small plot of land jutting out into Spectacle Pond. Let's do the poem here on the top right. I love this image because it looks like there's a background here of just plain gray, but then you realize there's this pocket of water on the right in the middle that's part of the pond. The top right poem. Whiteout yesterday. 3 feet of snow piled all around. When I was young and couldn't see, I would clean my glasses. Now, my eyes are so old, I just let my glasses grow dirty, accepting what is. Cleaning them will hardly help anyway. All I want is to live in the present moment, just to see into my own nature. What use are glasses there? There's another little poem I like on the right here, in the middle, right? Something about the ephemeral nature that we live in. I have wandered this path every day for 20 years. Yet wherever I look, I find no trace. This next poem, it shows the cabin. It's a fisheye lens. It's a wonderful image because you got half on the cabin and then half on the lake. And the poem I'm going to read, you're not going to be able to see without being able to expand your your view quite well, but it's and it appears in some of my other books, particularly the book that I wrote on a golden civilization. And there it's called media, and you'll see why. In a way, it's about news, false news, true news. A blade of golden light streams across the ice with perfect aim. Wherever I go, it follows, piercing my heart. A message of morning, direct from the sun, breaking the earth in two, from one great beast to another. It penetrates my heart. And this is my response. I trust the sun to tell the truth. I love its morning news. Where do you find yours, great friend? Where do you find yours? That's a wonderful question. I think we all know this, that the news that we get from the world around us, from nature, is so true. And such a contrast with some of the problems we're feeling in civilization right now. And then this question, where do you find yours, great friend? Is the poet addressing the sun? Is the poet addressing each of you listening right now? Is he addressing someone he knows? Good question. I'm not going to tell you the answer. Here we go. Let's go to the next. February 6th to 12th. Let's see which poem. I'm just going to read the one on the bottom left. This is a wonderful passage. I love these three images. And those of you in New England right now will feel the snowy, icy snow on the top right, because we've had those kind of days the last week or so. Each of these very beautiful, very solitary, but each of them in a way, a whole world. And this group of poems spans over the years. And I reflect back on the other poems on the page. I'm just going to read one of them, bottom left, where it says, 5 more years have passed. Stomach and lungs feel bad. But when I wake, the mind is marvelously clear. For days, over 5 feet of snow have fallen. My room more still than the snow, free of thought, uncluttered, each line clean. All day, I clear my mind, like pushing all the papers on a messy desk off. Over a cliff they fall, miraculously gone. When snow falls off a roof, you never have to put it back. That's one of my favorites. All right, let's go to, let's see, is there one I want to follow? Yeah, I'm going to read the one on the bottom right. It's a mysterious one in a way, again, addressing someone. Who is it I'm addressing? I have followed the path haphazardly. By the way, this is February 13th to 19th. So one of the poems on here is about Valentine's Day. You'll see it on the left. We're not going to read that one. We're doing the one on the bottom right. I have followed the path haphazardly, fallen in mornings, following you, lost between shadows and light, slipping on thin surfaces of ice. I've never betrayed you, but I've been lost. Now, in age, when my senses are less certain, assuming the shapes and surfaces of things, as if in a dream I fall down half past dawn, searching surfaces for meanings as if they were real. My rocky path, the ice, every morning. But you keep returning like the call of the morning dove. And I keep catching your call. I keep waking up. My darling, my dear one, don't leave me. I am listening. Could be anyone or anything, but of course it also is, I'm listening to nature. I'm listening to each moment. So important to me in this 30-year practice of moments on Spectacle Pond. So let's go to, here's one. Oh, even though I was in the financial world for a while, this happens to all of us. Top left. Terrified of running out of money, walking along the stream in snow and ice. Outside, the weather's clear, the snow already fallen. Winter stems and grasses form lines of music upon the snow. Inside, only terror. This is one of my favorite images. It has a little, is that a wren there in the bottom right where the poem weaves around it, and two references to one to the beginning of the universe 13 billion years ago, and another one to a poet as if they were writing to me 1700 years ago. So anyway, wonderful February 20th to 26th. And now we're going to move on to, let's go through a few of these. Here's March 6th. This is more of an E.E. Cummings type of poem on the right-hand side. You're going to see the last real images of winter. You're beginning to feel the light coming in as if spring is coming. Right-hand poem. How can this be? It's like my hair is on fire. Inspiration's leaping from the top of my head while I amble at ease and empty of self down the pathway of moss, rock, and snow to my cabin. Quick, bring me my pen. So let's go further. You'll see that we're getting into early spring, which feels pretty cold still in a way. Top right on this page here, that's the path going to my cabin. And with a pond on either side. I pour through large white pages of my poetry, moving through January, February, and March, as if they were thin layers of snow melting before my eyes. There's another image of the cabin. I think we'll skip this just to give more room for later in the year. Here's April 3rd to April 9th. April 10th to 16th. You'll see swan down on the right. Swans play a big role, as does the sun, as we mentioned earlier, I think. April 17th to 23rd. Let's read the top left poem. And look at the mix of winter and early spring. I mean, spring hasn't even, you can't see the buds really, but look at how the snow came, and we've got a beaver hutch out there, and just wonderful 3 different images of, you forget that how cold April can be, how cruel it can be, as T.S. Eliot said. Pausing for a moment, I am still, after all these years, astonished how, like worlds or continents or the back of beasts, the mottled bark on ancient trees appears. But then how much more astonishing to amble with ease down the morning path, dawning as I walk through one gate after another of arching trees, moment after moment of freedom. So here, oh, here's the railroad that runs by our home. You'll see the tracks in the top image. Here's one at bottom right. Where am I going? Lured by light, my pounding feet and the calls of birds along fieldstones and mottled shadows, always shifting. I wander down my morning path, walking deeper and deeper into the present moment. You can see how the present moment has begun to turn green a bit. And if you've got shadows, you know that there's some leaves showing up. You see some green grass at the bottom left. I live on the edge of the world, on a spit of land, a peninsula, practically falling into the water. Each day I putz around my cabin, keeping myself pure in spirit, simple in soul. In clear water, disturbances are easily resolved. Keep yourself pure if you want to find the present moment. Keep life simple. Keep returning to just being here. So then we move into May and you begin to feel, this is spring the way I feel it, yeah? Even more spring, almost early summer, but some branches not full yet. Wonderful images here, wild images of spring. Spring again, apple blossoms I refer to here, and much more green coming through. May 22nd to 28th, wonderful reflections in the pond. May 29th to June 4th, you see the pond spreading out and boat in the middle there. June 5th to 11th. This is one of my favorite images because the reflections are so gorgeous, so real. Bottom right. My corridor of curtains closes in. Draperies of bushes, leaves, and stems droop all the way down to the path, blocking my way. I gently push wet bark back as I walk, forthright or lilting down the lane. Each time I'm different. Sometimes like a scout on a scent, I scurry along, my gaze intent, downward on each stone, surveying its lines. Bordered by moss or by aromas, by tapestries of flowers and leaves, I can feel the arrow of fieldstones carrying me somewhere, into a language I'm learning, useless to all others, mysterious to myself. I let each moment be as if I had already arrived, as if I was always arriving, as if each moment I was setting out on a grand adventure, or after long absence, as if I was just returning home. It's June 12th to 18th, June 19th to 25th. Here's the path again now, really in summer, right? June 26th to July 2nd. Maybe I'll read one of these. Bottom right, a wee little man, that's me. A wee little man, dressed all in green, huddled over, but rushing along the mossy path, embedded and surrounded by overhanging bushes with the sweet scents of honeysuckle and wild roses in the air. The birds speak to me as I go, one wild word after another, filled with passion and song, hurrying me along. I think, those birds are like me. They know where I'm going. I'll just follow their song. What a way to be in the moment with the creatures around us. Speaking of which, here's a swan right at the tip of the point of Serenity Point, just beyond my cabin. and flowers come out. You see the lilies and the wild roses there. Oh, there's a poem here. On the top right, this poem actually, I made into a song, and it's part of an album of folk songs that I wrote in my COVID summer with my daughter, London Kinder. And here it goes. My shirt keeps falling like shadows or wind as I walk along the path against my shoulder, against my skin. It's how I know the movie I'm in has no direction. It's not driving to conclusions. It's not about arriving at freedom at the end. Its heroism is simpler than what we know. Fragile as Francis, vulnerable as Van Gogh. Its freedom is humble, is already here. No self, not deceptive, but shaky and clear. And let's go through July here, and you'll see flowers. And here in the bottom right, you can see again the railroad track. It's a dark image, but you can see that there's a track that runs along there in the top portion. And the road, of course, that I walk along every day. Here's the cabin again. Wild colors of the end of summer. And oh, you feel the beginning of fall, even though it's early August, mid-August. And of course, mid-August can also be very cool in its colors as well. And here again, the mist and the path of August. Moving on into September. And this is September 4th to 10th, and you'll feel the colors now, right? They've changed. You see the incredible flowers on the left-hand side, the Queen Anne's lace, and the cormorant always comes at the end of August and early September and sits out on a dock in the middle of the pond, all by itself. September 4th to 10th. Here's September 11th to 17th. Beautiful image of the pond. And you can feel the fall, but if you really look, you realize it's still quite green. It's early September. I'm going to read the bottom two poems here. My feet fall softly on the path this morning, as if I had a cat's paws, as if I wore slippers. Something happened in the night to take away my plodding. What was it? Something dripped through my ears. A word of support, perhaps. Or was it dreamed? Everything happens inside, where we have no words. And now I walk soft as a cat, knees absorbing every footfall, gracefully exploring each leaf, stem and stone, touched by morning light. So that notion of walking being something where you're not going somewhere, but every moment you're somewhere important, exploring, experiencing. What an incredible thing nature is. What a gift. So here's another one about walking. On the right-hand side, walking out into the wind with my tea, I am confused. To what world do I belong? Do I follow my purpose of the morning, or do I waft with the wind? Dare I listen to the music of the rain? I long to follow the long rays of the sun and respond to the clouds as they call me. All in a cluster of moments, I nearly drop my tea, half falling to the earth in longing, and listen till I know what to do, what the earth tells me, joining its creatures of moss, its mounds, grasses, roots, and fallen leaves. I wonder sometimes, how is it that I keep working in the world when there are so many other worlds that call me, that deepen me, and that hold not an ounce of the confusions, the contradictions, the judgments, opinions, and disappointments of this world? Why do I continue when in a single moment I can be free? Classic question. For me, it was the call of how nature calls to us, and yet we're compelled in so many ways to work in our work lives. September 8th to 15th to 24th. I just love the image. It reminds me of the prints of Hokusai and Hiroshige from Japan in the 19th century. A wonderful feel. September 18th to 24th. September 25th to October 1. I'm going to read 3 of these poems, I think. Top left. Just an old man losing sight and sound and sense. Oh, if you only had my eyes. Everything you saw would be a work of art. And if only you had my ears, everything you would hear would be onrushing music, pulling you forward into every opening, into endless conclusions. And oh, if you only had my sense, you would feel in every brush of wind and every shift of atmosphere the touch of intimacy, as if the great being of the world constantly made love to you. And oh, if you only had my spirit, if I could only touch you with my passion, all the world in every moment would reveal itself as your creation. Started off the day with business. Always a bad idea, regardless of how successful it might be. Sets the tone, puts a frame on a day that misses its central purpose, its essence. I go into a day as if it were a world I've never worn before. A set of clothes whose very feel and fashion is something I've never known. I enter a day as if I am wise already and naive at the same time, innocent of all the well-worn notions by which we cast cloaks of gray upon our days. I listen to every sensation as if to a new music, a music of beings I've never met, imploring me to be there in just their particular way, as if they together were one giant being engulfing me with sound. I enter a day on the tongue of the great beast, in the ear of the muse, on the arrow of the archer of time itself, and speed along his course as he sows the day into being. How could I start the day with business? And then one more from this glorious day of fall on the top right. My meditation has become more glorious, happening all the time, wherever I am. Instead of watching TV or surfing the web or reading a book, I shine like the sun. How can it be? Everything I touch becomes still and illuminated. This is my native place. This is where I was born. To all who would conquer fear, I say, keep returning to your native place. So let's move on into, you'll recognize the feeling of fall here, the full moon up at the top. And another wonderful, glorious image of fall that later parts of fall because it's the colors are more yellow. Here's October 16th to 22nd. I'll read one poem here, I think. Top right. I am walking along a path, an ordinary man on an ordinary day, when at my feet, all around me, flutters of leaves like wings, brilliantly colored, coming alive. Is it one bird of wings or dozens that lifts my heart up into its sky? And here, of course, the incredible image of the sky, but it's really looking down into the pond. It's a reflection on Spectacle Pond. And then this is an image that I love to pause by. You'll notice, of course, the full moon again, but you'll notice to the right-hand image, what an incredible day. So we had the fall and all the leaves and the wind blowing and the beautiful colors of the leaves, and then this incredible snow just a few years ago, and at the end of October, I think it was October 31st, and you'll see the railroad track running along the far right image and the road along the left. And those are two places, of course, that I wander every day. Wonderful. I'm lucky to have found this place 30 years ago and to continue to explore it. A few more poems. This is in November 6th to 12th, bottom right. Again, the path to my cabin. The pathway is clear, but even in November, barren as it is, nobody finds their way to visit me here at my cabin on Serenity Point. Even with last leaves hanging like pearls upon elegant stems, though the pathway is clear, no one sees the way. Another image of late fall, images of late fall. I love the wildness of these images. Obviously, this is end of November and you're feeling the coldness, but it's so dramatic at this time. And just one three-liner at the middle of this section of incredible images. What a useless man I must seem, spending my time opening moments as if they were bottles of wine. And I think we'll just go to the final image of poems so that you can see winter, right? Winter settling in. And I love these wild images here of the ice, almost space age images of early to mid-December. And then this where December's really settling in. Two beautiful images of just the softness of the snow, but cold and dark, white and gray. And then this final set here, let's see which one I'll read. I'm going to read the top left and then the bottom right. This is the last week of the year, December 25th to 31st. I live a hermit's life, even on Christmas. I live in the clouds, reflected in the pond, and when the pond turns toward ice, I live in its mottled flow. I live for the moment the sun bursts past the back of my chair onto the page I'm writing. As my fingers connect, clumsy, intelligent, lacing my shoes to go get tea, I see answers in the present moment. Noticing the breaths exhale as the gray laced shoe plops my falling foot onto the floor. I like the present. Reminds me who I am. Again, the book over and over again is an attempt to remind all of us to come back to the present moment. This is where we really experience freedom. We've never experienced a moment of freedom in the past. Only in the present moment is that experience possible. And then this final poem. In the cabin again at the end of the esker, in the early days of winter, feet on the sill, chasing every thought of myself down till it fades away. My days used to be filled with stories. Now I'd rather live in the weather, smell the grass under melting frost, see blue sky against the trees along the railroad ties, hear the geese and eerie underwater waves of sound like otters crying into the valleys of the pond against the creaking ice, into long moments of quiet, where the dust of snow like blessings shakes from limbs and falls onto my head. Releasing time and space from their prison of fabrication, a work of art becomes a work of nature, emerging with each drop of falling snow. I can say it simpler than this, although there's not much to say. Just this hulking, wintry body walking through fields of light. So that's the final poem. I will say, I'll just share these last 3 slides because I do a postscript, because sometimes it looks like, oh, he's just this hermit and all this. And it's a wonderful, they're all wonderful reminders for the present moment. But I'm also very aware that the world we're living in is troubled. And I speak to that in the last 3 pages. This second of the 3 pages has a map of mindfulness that shows how mindfulness actually helps. Being in the present moment actually helps bringing virtue, selflessness, great quiet, great spirit into the world. And then the final one has a fiduciary statement, which I love. I've devised for all institutions. And I think we could solve all the problems of the world if all of our institutions would simply follow this. Let me read it, and then we'll go back to the cover of the book, and I'll see if there are questions that you have. A fiduciary standard of obligation is required, if only it were, is required for all institutions, corporate, nonprofit, and governmental, to place the interests of all stakeholders of humanity, democracy, and the living planet that sustains us first above their own self-interest. Imagine if all those great institutions out there placed, us and the planet first. Wouldn't that be incredible? So, and then there's a final, and there we are back to the beginning. And as I said, we're offering this for free. If you're at all interested, yeah, I'm sure we'll find a way to let you know in your inbox. And I see that Nancy's come back. I don't know if Laura or Nancy want to see if there are any questions. I see there's a little bit in the chat. I don't know about the Q&A. Yeah. I'm going to stop the share, or maybe I'll leave. Should I leave the share up, Nancy?
You can stop.
I can stop it. Okay. And let's see.
Thank you so much. Those poems were absolutely beautiful. They'll be with us a long, long time.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Well, with you living in Acton, you know what it's like. This is like, right? It's all, that's the nature around you.
Well, there's nature all over the country. Certainly you and I appreciate the nature of New England, but I think some of our participants or attendees could offer a lot as well about where they live. I'm just checking to see if there's any other. So in the chat, Laura, who's a colleague of George, put in a place where you can sign up for this book as an email subscription, and it is free. So that's great. Thank you, Laura. So George, could you maybe talk a little bit about how you or why you discovered your need and appreciation of nature? Was this something that's been with you your entire life, or did it come later?
I think it came very, very early. I loved being in nature. I grew up, as I mentioned, in rural Ohio. We grew up on the edge of a small town of just a couple thousand people when I was there, and so there were fields all around us, and we walked. We also had a railroad that crossed right through, right behind our property there too, as well. And we would walk down the field and cross the railroad track and go out into fields and forest, going out for miles. So I just loved being in nature, and So it's always been there for me. And when I did something, the work that I did in the financial world was really helping people find their passion in life and to link that to their money and their budget and all of that kind of stuff. So we did all this stuff, finding what's your deepest, most passionate aspiration. And what I found, my image for that, Nancy, was over and over again it was just a phrase. It was, I want to live in the weather. I want to live in the weather. It's like, I want my senses alive like that. And as I said, it was a stunning thing for me to realize that mindfulness was also being in the weather inside here, and that they linked so beautifully together. So it's been with me all my life. And I think we're all in a way drawn to it. It's why we love to walk along the beach or, whatever it is we do.
Yeah. For those of us that don't live in an area with 4 seasons, is there something you could say about, if you live in the Southwest and it's pretty consistent, such a beautiful part of our country?
Well, the weather's there for us no matter what. It still warms up at a certain time of year, gets a little bit colder. I mean, I've spent a good deal of time in Hawaii, many years really in Hawaii. And we used to call to our East Coast friends and say, oh, it's so cold here. We're really cold. Yeah, I'm wearing socks. And, but you feel the cold. And of course, on the East Coast, there was no sympathy at all, right? So, so we feel the weather wherever we are. We feel the breeze. We feel the humidity. The aromas come through our nostrils. It's all there. And so I just encourage you to be in the moment. Do a mindfulness practice if you can, and live in nature as much as you can.
As much as you can. Not everyone's quite so lucky, but you can, if you look, you can find something from nature everywhere.
Everywhere. I lived in the city for many years, and I just couldn't wait to get home to I had a back porch, and there was a generator blaring, right against it. And I mean, there's no little, it's just concrete, but I just wanted to go out and sit on that porch and be outside. Anyway, it's everywhere.
Can you bring any poems about nighttime and stars? Or
I just saw that. There are poems about darkness and shadow and light and falling into the darkness in the evening time and the early morning before the sun rises and all of that. I don't know that I mentioned stars.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I think it's a little harder for us to see the stars up in the Northeast, but I think if you're down in Utah or parts of Wyoming or other parts of the country, you certainly have that wonderful benefit of a dark night sky.
Yeah.
I wanted to introduce Robin Phillips to everyone. She's our executive director. She's down in the DC area. Like I said, we are all over. So Robin, you want to say a quick hello before we close things out?
What I'm hearing really resonates. I have set my desk up so that I look out I have a forsythia bush, and the birds just love it. And I watch my whole garden through all the seasons, and I can keep track of all of that. And sometimes I see a fox go by. When I've been out walking in my neighborhood, I've seen deer. And I have to say that I spend a lot of time every day just being where I am and appreciating it and watching the trees. And the neighborhood I'm in has a lot of older trees. And so it's just, my family always wondered how I could stand to live in DC. And I said, well, I live in all the green spaces.
Beautiful.
There we go. I'm going to take 1 minute and share my screen just to kind of close things out. So I want to apologize. I said I'd put a few of those up and coming events in the chat. And of course, we got into the poetry and the photos, and I completely relaxed and forgot to do that. But if you go to our website, under events, you'll find all those great events that are coming up, including our book club that I mentioned. So George, again, thank you so much. We've learned so much today. I think I speak for all of us when I say you gave us just a wonderful hour, and so grateful for your photography and poetry.
Thank you.
I would like to ask our attendees, now that they've had a chance to relax, to take a few minutes to fill out the survey that'll pop up as soon as we end the workshop. Your feedback really helps us to improve and to continue to, improve the offerings that the workshops and the webinars and the meetings and the roundtables that we regularly hold. So if you could do that, that'd be great. There might be a reminder email tomorrow. It'll come into your inbox as well. So with that, again, thank you, George, Laura, thank you for all the help. And I hope all the rest of you have a very relaxing, wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.
Thank you.
All right.